What is integral spiritual practice?
Well, people hear it and it sounds like something maybe they could take up. Should I take up an integral life practice or an integral spiritual practice or an integral transformative practice? And I don't really see it as something that you can take up. In fact, as you go through life, you begin to discover that life is a school, that the challenges that you encounter and that you don't really learn from show up again in a new form. And in fact, life keeps giving you the same lessons again and again and again and again and again and again
Until you get them.
until you really learn them. And when you kind of figure that out and you become really you go a little quiet and humble and curious, and it mobilizes a deeper level of your energies and resources and intelligence. And if you're paying attention, you notice that, well, gee, that doesn't just have to do with my communications and my relationships. It doesn't just have to do with my way I use my attention. It doesn't just have to do with my relationship to diet and, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. It doesn't just have to do with whatever area of life that the first lessons have cropped up in. It's actually got to do with all of life. It's got to do with the deepest levels of your being. It's got to do with the most superficial levels of your being. The school is everywhere you look. It's every breath you take. It's every casual moment where you kind of switch off and you think it doesn't matter, and somehow it does matter, In fact, what you realize is that there's a saying in neuroscience, neurons that fire together wire together, which basically means that whatever's going on in your attention and in your brain gets stronger. So you're actually always practicing something, and you're actually making yourself more like however you're being all the time.
One of the things that it's made me chuckle at myself a number of times over the years is doing, for example, something that feels terribly mundane or tedious or frustrating, and go, oh God, I wish I was doing something like, I wish I was using this time to my meditation for something that was valuable or useful. And it's, like I'm washing the dishes or something, and it's
right.
like, but of course, that has the potential to
be
its own practice.
That's right. Doing the laundry is a meditation.
Right.
In fact, finding your way from the formulaic dead relationship to the ordinary moments of life is one of the biggest lessons that we learn in the life of practice. So that's the way I think of it. It's really just kind of getting the point that all of life is a practice and that it matters, and then noticing that there are these different dimensions of ourselves, different spheres of our lives. Our mind, our body, our deep psychological material, the kind of stuff we might deal with, call shadow or soul work or emotional work. There's the different levels of spiritual practice that spiritual practice is something you do when you meditate or when you pray or when you gather with people and go deep and something sacred takes place. But in some ways that spiritual practice also can pervade all of life too. But those different areas of life are not just different areas. There's actually a principle we call integral cross-training, wherein the person who begins meditating and disciplining their attention will progress faster if they're also taking on a physical practice. If the person who begins a particular course of meditation and takes up an intensive program at the gym at the same time is likely to get better at meditation faster than the guy who does it, which is sort of counterintuitive because working out at the gym has nothing to do with meditating. Why would that be? And I'm not sure that we really know all the reasons, but it does seem that when you're breaking up a kind of stuckness in one area of life, the organism becomes more creative. Instead of having this kind of attitude of settling into the homeostatic groove of the known and the familiar, there's an activation of potential in which you're curious, you're alive, you're improvising, you're opening. And that's not something you just do with your attention or your mind or even emotionally. You have to do it bodily. You have to do it in your relationships. You have to do it at work. You have to do it with the people that you're most intimate with and most close to, the people that are most difficult for you. It's a 360.
Yeah, and yet it seems to me that often what can happen is someone that their focus to practice is they're a meditator, or they're someone that goes to the gym, or they're someone that goes to therapy, and it seems
True.
rare that people have that 360 perspective to understand that each of those pieces actually has something to offer. And on one hand, it's such a simple idea, but it's actually quite a revolutionary concept in a sense.
I think that it's really proven itself as important, but it doesn't mean that you can't be an athlete and specialize in your sport, your event, or a musician and do a lot of practicing of the cello, and maybe comparatively a short amount of time on the meditation cushion or at the gym. We all are unique, and it's perfectly fine for you to have your preferences. And as I teach it, there's an art to this, because you have to modify your practices. It's not a matter of having a strict program. And really at the end, it's not about the practices at all. It is about life being practice.
Yes.
Because this, day and age that we're living in is one in which all the spiritual traditions of the world have converged, and they've converged in a scientific time. And there's a conversation going on among people who've devoted their lives for decades in a very intense way to Zen, to Vajrayana, or Dzogchen, various streams of Tibetan practice and Zen practice and Theravadan practice and different Hindu practices of different traditions, Kashmir Shaivites, Advaita Vedantic practitioners, yogis of various types, Sufis, Kabbalistic esoteric practice, Taoist and Chinese martial arts practitioners, shamanic practitioners, and they're all in dialogue with one another in the context of many of the practitioners being pretty smart and being very well read and being scientifically sophisticated, knowing something about modern psychology, knowing something about neurobiology, knowing something about the ways in which we've begun to reverse engineer our nervous systems and understand something about the principles through which even just the principles of adult learning, for example. So that the ferment of that conversation is, I think, among some circles of practitioners beginning to produce some areas of consensus. And the consensus produces some orienting generalizations about how to practice most efficiently, how to do the thing that you're doing anyway, because you realize that life is a school and that every moment is a practice and you're always doing something and you're creating your future and you want to be a friend to your future self. You want to be emphasizing the ways of being that are going to make you more and more the person you want to be, the man of the dreams of the woman of your dreams, or the friend of the dreams of the friend of your dreams, or the team member of the dreams of the team of your dreams. Like to become the person that you intuit you can be. Life's always about self-cultivation.